the line that I looked at, if I remember correctly, was bishop h3, rook c5, king takes h3, rook c4, g4,
knight f6, g4 traps the knight, obviously. Knight f6, rook f6, rook e8, rook c1, rook c1, knight c1, rook e1, knight e3, rook e2, rook f4, rook e2, rook e4,
knight f5, king f6, knight d6, b6. And this is where my preparation had stopped, if he had played this line. All right, so without further ado, let's get going. Let's get going with this. Today was round 7, I believe. I think it's round 7 of 11. So I was playing with black against Hikaru Nakamura. The game started at d4. DNE94 says early 2000s. Wow, like 100 years ago. Yeah, I know DNE94. Don't you remember that little thing called Y2K when all our computers were gonna they were all gonna explode. The world was gonna end because of all the rounding the digits up. Like, computers couldn't handle it. There was going to be no internet, no people. We were headed to the Stone Age. It was going to be the apocalypse. Yes, I do remember those days. That feels like an eternity ago, nearly 20 years ago now. Long time ago. So, yeah. So, all right, you guys. So, all right. So the game started out with d4. I played d6. Now, the reason I played d6 was basically going to this round. I felt that in order to sort of keep the dream alive, try to contend for first place, I needed to try and press bar with black. First of all, because thank you, BGH13, for strongly tier 1 sub. Thank you for that, Zepcat. I am absolutely speechless. I have nothing to say. So thank you for that, Zepcat. BJ says, Hikaru, I need you to keep being great stuff today. Thanks, Chessbait, for the stream. Thank you, BJH. What's the saying? Make Hikaru great again? I guess that would be the saying, BJH. So going to this game, I figured, thank you, BJH. I see your resub is 18 months. On my iPad, it just says subscribe. It doesn't say the amount of months. But thank you, BJH. I think you are by far and away the biggest supporter of the stream. 18 months in a row, that is some serious commitment. I'll definitely make an effort to get back out to LA and to Torrance and go see you and Jonas over at the brewery again soon. So all right. So as I was starting to say, going to this game against Bruges, I felt that I needed to try and press him. I do have 2 whites still against Sam and Lenier, but they're obviously 2 of the stronger players in the field. Well, Sam isn't having a great event, and I do play him tomorrow. He's still a very, very strong player. And Lenier is obviously one of the leaders right now. So obviously I have 2 whites against those guys. I'm definitely going to try to press them. But Varusian is having a very bad tournament. So going into the game today, he had lost 2 games in a row against Sam Sevian, and I believe it was he lost to somebody with black. I think it was A1 Liang he lost to. So having lost 2 games in a row, he definitely was one of the weak links, one of the people that I needed to try to do something against. So therefore, after d4 in the game, I played d6, trying to play something unusual. Varusian played knight f3. No, Varusian Akobian is not Iranian. He's from Armenia, but of course, Armenia, Iran, all these countries in the Levant are really quite similar. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's some mix in there as well. Anyway, so the game went d4, d6, knight f3. I played g6 here. Varusian played c4. Here I played bishop to g7. Varusian played knight to c3. Here I played knight to c6. So this is the first sort of critical point in the game. So at this point, normally black would play knight f6, e4, castles, bishop e2, and e5. And and after e5, this turns into just a classical King's Indian, which Varusian has played many times. So for that reason, I did not play knight f6 here. I played knight to c6. Varusian played d5. If Varusian plays e4 here, I can play bishop to g4, for example. I can also play e5, possibly. Many different possibilities. But Varusian did not play e4. Didn't want to possibly give me any ideas of like bishop g4, d5, knight d4, or e5, d5, knight e7, followed by f5, knight f6, and quick castling. So for that reason, Var played d5. I played knight to e5 here. D5, what are my thoughts on that? It's a very good move, a very practical move. Try to take the center in space, gain a tempo on the knight, build up the center. I can't really break it easily. And so the center is very good. And also the bishop on e5 looks really nice here. But at the same time, white can always play bishop e3 and bishop to d4 to exchange the bishops. So for that reason, d5 is logical. We traded. Now Var played e4. In a previous game, I believe last year in the U.S. Championship, Alex Onyshik played the move g3 here. And after h5, we had a very, very wild and messy game. I think it ended in a draw, but we both had some chances. So it's a completely different line. White tries to be on Keto. Black tries to just play coffee house shots and attack on the king side here. And mate the king, like if you castle, trade, and maybe bishop h3 and queen d7 and queen h3. So for that reason, Var didn't want to go into this. He wanted to avoid playing coffee house chess. So he played e4 here. Now I played knight to f6. Very unusual move, keeping the bishop on e5. Normally, as in many King's Indians, you play this sort of structure with the bishop on g7 and the knight on f6. But this bishop on e5 looks really good, and it's hitting the knight, and why not finish development first? Try to win the pawn on e4 if I can trade on c3. So here, Var played bishop d3. Yeah, coffee house chess. I'm going to say this is coffee house chess. So in this tournament, I think I've now played a lot of old man chess, and I've played one game of coffee house chess. So I've played both those styles. So I've found a way to make it work. So here, Var played bishop d3, logical, protect the pawn in case I want to exchange the bishop for the knight on c3. So here I castled. Var castled, now I played e6. Really, the two moves here are e6 or c6. I try to break open the center immediately, keep the bishop on the diagonal, and more importantly, f4 is not a threat, so I always have bishop d4 check, hitting the king. Thank you, Calix, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. So here I played e6. c6 was playable. Bruja Webb says, so what will Maurice think now? I don't know what Maurice will think. I mean, Maurice himself likes a good game of coffee house chess, so he should have been a big fan of today's game. I don't know what he said about the game today because I didn't hear anything about the commentary, but basically, from what I heard, like Maurice did not say anything too crazy about my game today. So yeah, thank you, Draws, for subscribing with a resubbing 5 months in a row. Sorry, you guys, for seeing the on the screen. I see on my iPad, I see the 5 months in a row, whereas on my iPad, it only says a subscription with a tier 1 sub. So sorry if I make some mistakes and I just say you subscribe even if it's a resub. So so yeah. So all right. So castles. Back in the game here, I played e6. The two moves are e6 or c6. c6 is also playable. But in this game, I thought e6 was more practical. Try to open the e file, put more pressure on the pawn at e4. Thank you, Deanna Roo, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Great win today. Unlucky Fabiano game today. Yes, but as a wise man told me, or as the proverb goes from the old days, you can only control your own game. Your own game is the only thing that you can control. It is your destiny to win every game that you play. So I know that's not exactly how the proverb goes, but the only thing you can control is your own game. So for that reason, whatever. Fabiano won, Lenier won, Sam won, big deal. I can't control what they do. I can't, if Sam Sevian's going to go and win every game of the tournament, good for him. I can't control that. All I can do is try to play my games and win my games. Thank you, Ragnar Roach, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Thank you, Abobble96, for subscribing with Tier 1 sub. Thank you, Jason Super Mangarza, for donating 700 bits. Thank you so much, Jason Mangarza. So here I played e6. Try to also maybe open up this diagonal. So here, Var played h3. Now, there is one little trick in the position. So here, white can play bishop to h6, hitting the rook on f8, trying to follow it up with f4. But now there's a very nice tactic with knight takes d5. If white takes with the pawn, either pawn actually, but let's just say c takes is more rational. There's queen h4, hitting the bishop, hitting the pawn, threatening checkmate. If white plays f4 to hit my bishop and prevent the mate on the diagonal, I just go bishop d4 check, hitting the king, king h1, and then queen takes h6. And black is simply up a pawn here. So for that reason, Var played h3. Here I traded on d5. He took with the c-pawn. Now here I played in true coffee house style, played knight to h5. Rook e8 is also possible. Try to exchange the bishop for the knight, win the pawn. But knight h5 is what I had prepared for the game, so why not go with it? Alleviation says that you've prepared for all the lines here so far. Yes. And to add a little tidbit, one thing that was confusing to me going into this game is after walking over to the club and sitting down at the board, I noticed that Var had this scowl on his face from the get-go. He looked very, very angry. I don't know what happened before the game, or if he was just mad at me or mad at the tournament, everything going on. But he had this very angry look on his face from the get-go. And he was also banging out his moves really fast and really loudly. So I was kind of confused by what exactly was going on, because he was moving really fast. He was banging and banging the moves out, hitting the clock relatively hard. So Ab's Mind Professor says Var always looks angry. No, Var usually doesn't look angry. He only looks angry when he plays Wesley, but he looked really angry. So I was a little bit confused as to what was going on in the game, because he was making these moves really quickly. So here I played knight h5. Again, Var banged out f4 after maybe 25 seconds of thinking. Didn't use much time, which it makes sense, because here I'm playing knight h5 to try and put something on f4. And here White has two choices. White can play f4 like Var did in the game. White can also play knight e2 to control the d4 square and play for f4, f5, maybe even g4 later. But Var played f4. This is not live, you guys. This is my game against Verusian Akobian. The game finished, I want to say, about 2.5 hours ago. Finished around 6 o'clock local time. Or no, actually a little bit earlier. But it's been a couple of hours since the game ended. So Var played f4 logical move. I played bishop d4 check, hitting the king. Var played king h2, and in true coffee house style, I played queen h4, going for queen g3, bishop takes h3, try to play like a barbarian and checkmate the king right away. And all that stuff. Master Streamer 3-4 says, what happened to the microphone? I'm not able to actually stream myself here from St. Louis, so I have someone basically doing a Zoom call with me. That would be Chessbay. So Chessbay is doing a Zoom call with me, and that's how we're doing the stream, because the connection is just not good enough here. So if there are issues with the microphone, there's not much I can do about it, but it's still better to have a stream than to not have a stream. Thank you, Dr. RD, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. And yes, Danny says, barbarian old man coffee house chess. I knew it. Yeah, so queen h4 is a very serious move. Threatening to play queen g3. Let's just say White plays, I don't know, a random move, knight b5. Here I can play something like queen g3 check. Or actually, probably bishop h3 is better. Bishop h3. Bishop h3, if White takes the bishop, I have bishop to g4 check, discovery on the king, winning the queen on d1. If White takes on h3, then I play queen g3 check, king h1, and queen takes h3 is checkmate. King can't go to g1, and queen controls all the squares around the king. And so for that reason, Var did not go for this. Michael Lineage says, extra facial hair for the barbarian. Look, yes, Hikaru the barbarian. So all right, so after king h2, queen h4 threatens these ideas with queen g3 and bishop h3. Now here there were a couple of moves I had looked at before the game. I had looked at queen f3 and knight to e2. These were the two moves that I looked at before the game. Light Rider says Hikaru the barbarian actually sounds decent. Yes, it's better than Conan, right? So after queen h4, if rook f3, actually rook f3 is a blunder here, because now I can go bishop g4. You can't take the bishop, and you can't move the rook, because then your queen on d1 will hang. So rook f3 runs into bishop g4. Wizard Stick says Hikaru the samurai. Hikaru the samurai was looking at swords before his game this morning on Etsy, looking at some very nice, fine swords from the 1930s from Japan, as Chessbay can confirm. So a sword is not the craziest thing. Maybe I'll buy a sword and I'll put it underneath the painting, or under the woodblock in my house back in Florida for the streamers. And then when I tilt, I can pull the sword out and lose my mind the way Eric would. But that's that. So all right, so after queen h4, Var thought for a very long time here. By this point, Var had calmed down. He wasn't looking super angry anymore. I think he was just confused as to what was happening in the game. And so he played queen e1. So the moves I looked at here were queen f3 and knight e2. As I mentioned before, if rook f3, there's bishop g4, which picks up the queen on d1 or the rook on f3. And if White plays queen f3, which is a very natural human move, then Black can play this very nice move g5. Looks like a strange move. If White plays something like knight e2, there's a a nice move pawn to g4, just trapping the queen on f3. You can't take on g4 because your king is pinned on h2. You can't go queen g3 because then I take the queen. So if I get g4, the queen is trapped. If white takes on g5, then I play bishop e5 check, hitting the king g1, and now there's a very nice move f6 here. And at this point, white's already in quite a bit of trouble. If white trades, I take with the rook. Now there's bishop d4, knight g3, queen g3, queen h2 is also coming, and white's in a lot of trouble. If white plays something like bishop e3, black can just play bishop d7 to connect the rooks. Now I'm threatening to take on g5. And black is a little bit better here. Nothing super special, but it's very dangerous for white. Thank you, Banana Sleeve, for subscribing with a tier 1 sub. So for that reason, Version did not play queen f3 here. And the other move that I mentioned, thank you, Banana Sleeve, for subscribing with a tier 1 sub. The other move that I looked at was knight e2. And now bishop to f2 is my plan, to play for bishop g3. Try to check the king on h2. And I'm also threatening to go bishop g4 takes and maybe knight g3 or queen g3 again. So this is very, very dangerous for white. And if this had happened with the line that I looked at in the game, would have gone f5 takes, rook e8, bishop d2. I think it was rook e5, bishop e1, bishop takes e1, queen e1, rook e1, rook takes d5. I think the computer move was f6 here. And if rook takes d3, there's knight f4 with a back rank mate. Actually, maybe knight c1 is better, but knight f4 looks right. Hitting the rook, threatening checkmate, and also hitting the knight on h5. And the pawn at f6 covers g7. So after f6, the correct line, the line that I looked at with the computer, was bishop takes h3. If white plays like king h3, I just take. If white takes with the pawn, I also just take, because now the rook on e8 covers the back rank. I think the line that I looked at, if I remember correctly, was bishop h3, rook c5, king takes h3, rook c4, g4, knight f6, g4 traps the knight, obviously, knight f6, rook e8, rook c1, knight c1, rook e1, knight b3, rook e2, rook f4, rook b2, rook a4 to protect the pawn on a2 and hit the pawn on a7, a6, knight d4, king g7, rook c4, c5, knight f5, king f6, knight d6, b6. And this is where my preparation had stopped, if he had played this line, which, of course, Version did not play. But this is where my preparation would have stopped. So yeah, this was my preparation up to move 34. Of course, this did not happen because white's moves are not obvious, and for a human, it's borderline impossible to play like this. Zeldaska says, "WTF is this prep?" That's pro level prep, you guys. That's how you prep like a champion. So that's how you prep like a champ. But of course, this didn't happen for obvious reasons. Shouldn't you say this for future opponents? No, because the one great thing I will say about can't tell if I'm serious. I'm very serious, actually. This was my prep. You can go turn on Leela or Houdini or any of those any of those programs. But yeah, this was my prep. This was my prep. This was my full preparation up to move 34. So anyway, you guys, obviously this wouldn't happen again. Knight e2 is not human, because after bishop f2. You have to play f5, and yeah. So as I was saying, you guys, sorry for getting distracted. In terms of saving prep, one of the great things about modern day chess and actually being able to stream on Twitch is that when you play an idea, for the most part, an idea is good for one game. So when I talk about knight e2, bishop f2, I might be able to play this variation again in the future. This whole knight h5, queen h4. But if I'm going to play it again in the future, I'm not going to be able to play this for probably 2 or 3 years until everyone forgets about it. So for that reason, I can show these variations, because I'm sure that VAR has already worked out that knight e2, bishop f2, this whole f5 line is playable. He's probably even worked out something earlier being good. So for that reason, there's nothing really that I should hide in this video. Thank you, Chessbay94, for giving a sub to Daboos86. Thank you so much, Chessbay94. So in terms of why I'm showing you this, it's because I won't be able to play this again for quite some time. I'll have to come up with some other bit of poppycock to play next time that I need to beat VAR with black, because this won't work again. So that's why I have no problem showing you this 92, because already at this point, I'm guessing Fabiano, anybody who wants to look at this, they'll look at this for like 5 minutes and they'll work out what the best moves are for white. And if I try it again anytime soon, I'm just going to get smoked and blown off the board. So that's why there's no issue showing this to you guys. So for that reason, let's continue with the game. So queen h4. So VAR did not play 92, which is the top line that I had looked at. He did not play queen f3. 92 is very hard to play also because if you're, as a human, unprepared when your opponent's blitzing out all the moves, to play a move like f5 looks very ugly here. Your king looks open, you're giving the e file, you've got weak pawns on f5 and d5, and it's very, very hard to play over the board when your opponent's blitzing out all the moves. So I didn't really expect VAR to play this, but I figured I would give you guys a little bit of a whirl and see and show you guys exactly just how deep some of the preparation does go from time to time. So on that note, Varusian played queen to e1. Here I traded on e1. I played bishop f2. He played rook f1. It's worth noting I can also try f5 first with the same idea to prevent some of these ideas like rook f3 here. But I like bishop f2 more. So bishop f2, rook f1 was played, bishop g3, king g1. Here I played f5. Here I played f5. The idea is I want to undermine the pawn on e4. The bishop on g3 is very good. It puts pressure on f4, but it also prevents white from ever playing g4 and attacking the knight on h5 here. So for that reason, I like this idea. Here VAR played a very good move. He played rook to f3, hitting the bishop on g3. And now in this position, as some of you probably watched the commentary when I was on after my game with Maurice, but basically I used 40 minutes before playing bishop takes f4 because when I played bishop f2, I saw this whole variation with rook f1, f5, rook f3, fe4, knight e4, bishop takes f4, and I thought it's all good for black. What I missed that after takes rook c1, this idea with bishop f5 is no good because there's this in-between move, knight to f6, hitting the king and hitting the knight. If I take the knight, white takes the rook. And then if I take the bishop, white takes the knight, and this pawn on c7 is hanging next move. And so white is simply up material here. You guys, don't complain about the sound. There's not much I can do about it. We've been over this many, many times already. There's plenty of blame to go around, but I can't do anything about it. So basically, I use all this time because when I played bishop f2, I calculated this whole position after rook f3, only to realize that all these ideas with knight f6 were actually really, really good for white. So for that reason, in this position, I spent 40 minutes before playing bishop takes f4, and basically I reached the conclusion that there was nothing better. So I really wanted to try and win this game and put pressure on Varusian and try to move up the leaderboard, but I could not find anything better than bishop f4. So that's why I just played it. He took. I took on e4, and now after maybe 2 minutes, Varusian immediately played bishop takes e4, and I was simply confused because I spent 40 minutes trying to come up with something on the other variation with knight takes e4. So the reason that I used 40 minutes was because after knight e4, rook f4, white plays rook to c1, hitting the pawn on c7. I can't bring the rook back to f7 because then white would just trade the rooks and take the pawn on c7 with check, and then he'll also take the pawn on d6. And so it's kind of hard to protect the pawns on d6 and c7 here. Yes, I was up on time. Yes, I was up a lot on time because VAR used, I want to say, he probably used, on queen e1, he used forever. I don't know how much time he used, but he used a lot of time on queen e1. I remember when he played queen e1, I think after queen e1, he was already down to 47 minutes, which means he would have used probably about 45 minutes already in the game, since we started with an hour and a half. So for that reason, how much time do you get in these games? The games, you get an hour and a half from the start, but you get a 30-second increment for move one. So it's 40 moves in 90 minutes, hour and a half, plus 30 seconds for every move. And then sudden death, I believe it's 30 minutes with 30-second increment for every move in the second control as well. So after fe4, knight e4 is the issue because I thought rook f4, rook c1. The best line that I saw here was rook c3, gf3, knight f4, hitting the pawns on h3, d5, and the bishop on d3. White goes bishop to f1 here. And now I still have this problem of how do I defend these pawns on c7 and d6. And what I concluded was I was going to play knight d5. White plays bishop to c4, very annoying pin on the king. Here I have to play c6. If I go bishop e6, white trades and goes knight to f6 check, hitting the king, hitting the bishop, king f7, knight takes d5, and white is just up a piece here for 2 pawns. So this would be really, really bad here. So after bishop c4, bishop e6 is bad, but I would have played c6. White plays knight f6, king f7, knight d5, trade, king f6, rook c7. I was just going to play bishop e6 here, trade, rook b7 and h5. And here we have an endgame. Rook and 4 pawns against rook and 4 pawns. Very even, should be a draw with correct play. Neither side really has anything special here. So basically when I used the 40 minutes, I was just thinking, well, you know, what am I going to do? What can I do to try and keep the game going if I don't play this bishop f4? And then just thinking on and on, then it's like, well, if I draw now, what am I going to do about dinner? Am I going to go eat sushi or something else? What to do with life? But then when VAR played bishop takes e4 really quickly, it's like, oh well, the game's back on. We're back in play. We've got a shot. So so it's like it's like, okay, I was resigned. You know, he's going to play knight e4. We're going to make this long drawing line that I just showed. Where we get this rook end game, no big deal. You know, quick easy draw with black. That's life. You move on. And then when VAR played bishop e4, it's like that jolt. It's like getting that jolt of electricity and energy when suddenly it's like, oh, the game's back on. I'm back in it to win it. And so here VAR played rook f1, which is a mistake actually. Here white should play knight to d5. Zeldaska says his opponent questions his life choices while Hikaru thinks about what sushi he'll eat later. Right, like should I eat some hamachi? Should I get some unagi? Maybe some uni as well. If I'm really in the mood, I feel like wasting some money. Maybe I should even get some tamago, all kinds of good Japanese stuff. Maybe some octopus too while I'm at it. Maybe I should get a spicy caterpillar roll even. That would be the best one. Hello there, Magnus. Anyway, so after knight takes f4, here, Verusian played rook f1, which is a mistake. He should have played knight b5 here. After knight f5, rook f7. And here white can play king to h2. It's worth noting if white tries knight takes c7 here to win the rook on a8. If I take the knight, white just takes on f4. And we've reached even material here. So after rook f7, white should go king h2. Here, I should play a6, and after knight c7, rook c7, rook f4, king g7. Position's about equal, and neither side can do much. I also forgot here, if white takes on c7, though, it doesn't work right away because I play knight takes h3 with check first, g takes h3, and then rook c7, and now I'm just up a pawn here. So in this position after knight f4, Verusian should have played knight b5, but based on the reaction that I could see on Verusian's face, he was already very rattled at this point, because when I played knight f4, he thought for like 30 seconds or a minute, and then suddenly he just shook his head, and his eyes started bulging a little bit. And I could tell that because of that, it was very obvious that Verusian simply, I think, didn't realize that I could take with the knight. Maybe he just forgot that after rook f1, g5, knight e2 doesn't work, so I can take the knight with check. And if he plays like g3, I can also just take this pawn with check as well. So I don't know for sure if that Verusian missed this, but based on the general reaction that I could see that was on his face and the expression, it was pretty clear that he had missed something already. So for this reason, after g5, Verusian played h4. Now I played bishop g4, and pretty much after rook f1, I think black is already much better in the driver's seat, and it's very hard for white to salvage this. So here VAR played h4, bishop g4. h6 is also possible, but after trades in g3, I'm going to have to put the knight on h3 here, and after king g2, rook f3, this knight is kind of boxed here. It's getting trapped. White also still has this idea with knight b5, hitting the pawns on c7, d6, and a7. So for that reason, this is very, very dangerous. And this knight, like it's this, I've gotten a knight. I mean, what's it? A pawn for my knight here on h3, but the knight's completely stuck here, so it doesn't really do that much. So for that reason, h6 is not logical. I also can't take because then I lose the knight on f4. If I move my bishop, say d7, white just takes the pawn, and now he's threatening to win the knight, or trade rooks on f8 here. So for that reason, I didn't want to play bishop d7, which is why I found a very nice in-between move, bishop g4, hitting the rook on f3. Is a3 possible? Do you mean a3 or do you mean a6? Is a3 or a6 the move you're talking about? Jaquel 49. I assume you're talking about a6, but I could be wrong. So, yeah, if I have time to play a6, I can play a6, but bishop d7 is more productive because it covers b5, but more importantly, it will connect my rooks. So a6 is always possible, but if I can play bishop d7, it's a more convenient way to cover the b5 square. So here I played bishop to g4. Again, I need to do something about this knight f4. Var played rook g3. Here I played h5. And so now white takes on g5. So we've reached even material again, but now I've got a great bishop on g4 supported by the pawn. The rook on g3 isn't really doing anything special. And now I've transformed this so it's even material, but white has these ugly pawns on g2 and g5, and this ugly rook on g3. So in this position, I played rook a to e8 here. Version played bishop f3. Here I played rook to e5. Important move, actually. Bishop f5 is another move that looks possible, but it's not a good move because here white goes bishop d1. Now here if white played a move like knight b5, this runs into the very unpleasant move h4, just trapping the rook on g3. So here white can play bishop d1, and now if I try bishop d3, white has a very nice move, rook takes f4, and after rook takes f4, white just plays rook takes d3, and he's got two pieces for the rook, and this pawn at h5 is weak, and white can go bishop f3 or knight b5, so white should be winning here. So for that reason, I didn't want to play bishop f5, but I found a very nice concept by playing rook e5 here. Hits the pawn on g5, but much more importantly, it puts pressure on the pawn on d5. The computer said bishop d7 was the right move here. And after bishop d1, there's a good move for black here. Oh, earlier. Okay, not this position. Okay, fair enough. Well, I'm not a computer. What can I say? I can't always play the best move in the position. So it's unfortunate. If I could, I'd be 3,400, but I'll never be 3,400. So, all right, so I played rook e5 here. Now here version has to do something, so I'm threatening to win the pawn. It's important to note he can't play knight e4, trying to plop the knight on f6, just stick it in here and hit the king on g8, because then I have rook takes e4 here. Do you post these analysis on YouTube after you do them? That would be pretty sweet. Yes, Darth Tater. Most of these videos are already up on YouTube. I think my game against Sam Sevian is up. The game against A Wonder as well. The game against Fabiano, they are on YouTube as well. But knight e4 here would not work because here I play rook takes e4. And at bishop e4, I've got the very nice move knight to e2, which is check, hitting the king and the rook. And after king h2, I don't take this rook, but I in fact take this rook, and black's just up a piece here. So white can't go knight e4 trying to get the knight to f6 here. And so therefore, white has to trade on g4. So here I took on g4. Verusian took on g4, and now I played knight takes d5. So this is a classic. We're headed for a very classic rook and pawn endgame here after rook knight d5, rook f1, king f1, rook d5. But as the saying or the maxim goes, all rook and pawn endgames are always drawn. Generally, that's true, and this one as well, I believe there was a drawing possibility for Verusian, but this one, unlike most rook and pawn endgames, it's very, very hard for white because here I've got 4 connected pawns, and white's got 2 very ugly double G pawns, and the king is even not even just their double G pawns, but my king is in front. So like if you could somehow make some moves, like just as an example, let's say you get this position, for example, white would be completely fine because the rook is behind the pawn and it's going to power the pawn forward, going straight to g8, and the king is far away. But in this position, there are many practical problems. So not only do I have the 4 against 2 on the queen side, not only do I have rook d2 potentially coming, but I also have my king in front of this pawn, so this rook being on g4 actually does nothing. So there are a lot of issues in this position for white here. So for that reason, I felt that this, and he was in time trouble as well, which does not help matters for white. So here I played king g7. Varusian played rook to c4. It's worth noting rook e4 here would not work because then I played rook g5. And if rook e7 check, I go king f6. Rook takes c7, but then I have rook takes g2, hitting the king. And after king b3, just rook takes b2. And it's 3 against 1 here on the queen side. I can just bring my king over, and this is a technically winning endgame here. So white can't go rook e4. White also really would like to activate the rook. He needs an active rook. The rook is behind the pawn. The pawn's never going to g8 no matter what you do here. So for that reason, it's very hard. And someone says, would I be able to defend this? Maybe if I had time. But if I had 3 minutes here like Var had, I don't think I would draw this against anyone over 25-50. I don't think I'd even come close. So it's really hard to defend. And the fact that Var had no time makes this even worse. So here, Varusian played rook c4. And now, what if white plays g6? g6 is completely playable, but the pawn's not going anywhere. So there are a few things to remember about this endgame. First of all, I can play something like rook e5, king d2, and rook e6 to just collect the pawn on g6. And white can't ever really create threats against these pawns. So if you go rook c4, I go c5, or even c6, and if rook a4, a6, rook b4, b5. Good luck attacking the pawns now. If you play rook a4, I just go a6. If rook c4, again c6. If rook b4, b5, and c6. And the pawns are all very mobile. They're very solid here. My rook on e6 also protects all of them. So white can never really create threats against the pawns, even though they look like you should be able to put them on certain squares where it's going to be unpleasant. It's very hard to do. So for that reason, I just play like this. I'm going to take the pawn. Now, it's important to note one thing here is that if we reach this endgame, this king of pawn endgame is winning for black because I've got 4 connected. So if white goes king e3, I just go d5, king d4, and c6. And white can never broach the structure and bring the king around because then the d pawn is going straight to d1 to make a queen. If b4, just king g5, something like b5, just king g4, a4, and a6, or king g3, a5, a6. And after takes king c5, just king g2. And again, white can never bring the king forward, so I'm just going to push the pawn straight up to d1 and make a queen. So for that reason, this rook and pawn ending is always losing, which is why in this position, it's already time to start getting desperate, because if I have all the time in the world and I just keep these pawns intact like this, the pawn chain's eventually gonna win for black. So for that reason, Varusian played rook c4, and here I missed a win. So in this position, I think Varusian had about 2 minutes on the clock. I had about 50-ish, 48, 47-ish minutes. And in this position, there were really only 2 moves that I considered. So the moves I considered were c6, which I ended up playing in the game, or rook to c5. Now, rook c5 is a very creative move because I'm trying to exchange rooks, but also if you move the rook, I get rook c2 with check, hitting the king on e2, and hitting the pawns on g2, b2, and a2 here. And it's hard to tell what's happening. So in the game, I figured this probably is winning, but if it's not winning, then it's hard to play because it's just a draw. So if white trades here, you've got 4 pawns against 2 pawns here on the queen side. But it's hard to push the pawns all the way up the board because 2 of the pawns here are doubled on c5 and c7. So let's look at this endgame here for a little bit, because this is a very instructive endgame here. So the question here is, how does white want to stop the pawns? So does white want to go b3, or does he want to go king d3, king e4, king d5 here? Now, first off, b3 is actually a very bad move. Now, the reason b3 is bad here is because I go b5. This way I can always play c4. And after king d3, I play the move king g6, king e4, and I play the in-between move c6 here to take the square. If white tries king e5, then I just take the pawn, and again, white can never broach with king d6 because then I play c4 and I move this pawn down the board to make a queen. So white can never bring the king in to attack the base of the pawn chain, and you can also never somehow attack this pawn on c5 here. So for that reason, this is completely winning. So white can't play b3, first of all, because after this b5, I put this pawn clump here on c6, c5, b5, and white can never bring the king in to attack the base or attack the pawn on c5. And without that, I just rub my king up and collect the pawn on f4, or the pawns on g5 and g2, sorry, and it's just winning completely for black. Another idea here is king d3, c6, king e4, king d6, king f4. Now if I go c4, white trades and goes king e4, king d4, and picks this pawn up, and probably wins the game as well because I still have to deal with pawns on g5 and g2. But here this is actually winning because now I can play the move a5. Again, push the clump of pawns forward here. And if white plays, let's just say, I don't know, like something like g4 here. Now I go c4, b takes c4, and I play the other move. I go b4 here. And this is winning now because white can't go c5 because then I go a4, king e3, b3, ab3, a3, and the pawn is too fast. I make a queen. After b3, white can't go a3 because b2 makes a queen as well. So white can't play c5 here. And if white tries to bring the king back with king e3, then I play c5 and I make a nice little block here of king f4 or even king d3. I just go a4. And now white can never bring the king to d5, so I go b3, b2, b1, and make a queen again. And so these three pawns rule the day, and I just collect these boys, bring the king over, and collect the pawn on c4 as well. So this one is winning as well. So this is why white can never play this setup with b3. So once you conclude that white can't play b3 here, the only other logical way for white to play is to go king d3. And now here again, you play b5. If you were to go king d6, white goes king c4, b6, and now I think after king b5, white's king is getting in here, and white might even be winning here. But here you can play b5 to stop king c4. If white goes king e4, you go king to g6. White goes king to d5, and now you go c4. And now here white has to think. So white can't go king c6, because then you go b4, again, you create the passed pawn, make another queen here on c1. If white goes king c5, there is one key move here that wins the game. So way back at the start of this whole line when I was calculating about 10 moves ago, the only setup that I thought made sense here was to play c6 and use a5 to b4. Because to me, it seems much more logical that you want to have this access to play a5 and b4. But the correct move here would be to play a6. Now the reason is because after c6 here, you'll notice that the white reigns as one will be back to normal stream schedule once this tournament ends in about 5 days, so quite a while. But if I play c6 here, white can't take because then I go b4, c3, as I've mentioned many times. But here, white can play a3 to prevent me from going b4. Thank you, Guinea Pig 2525, for donating 108 bits. So after a3, I can't take because then white takes and the b4 square is covered. So I'd have to play a5. So now if king c6, then just b4, c3, again, make a queen. But the problem now is after I play a5, white can play a4 here and fix the pawns. And now if I take, white just trades on b5 and takes the pawn on b5, and my pawns are split and I lose the game here. So I can't take. If I take on a4, white just takes the pawn on c4 here. Thank you, Olyanov, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. And now after king c4, whoa! Whoa, thank you, GM John Davis, for gifting 100 subs to the community. Thank you so much, GM John Davis. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, John Davis. What a legend. For those of you who don't know John Davis, he's donated to a lot of channels, great supporter of all the various chess streams here on Twitch. So thank you so much, John Davis. Wow, what a legend. So this endgame is very tricky, you see. So after a4, the logical way to continue here is to play c3. But now after c3, white doesn't take, because then I just go c2 and make a queen again. Thank you, Magoo9, for subscribing to Twitch Prime. White has to take, but after b takes a4, trying to win with the double pawn, since they're boxing the king out here, white can go king c4, king g5, and white goes king to d3 here. 1 second. Let me try to figure this out. 1 second, you guys. 1 second, you guys. Sorry, I having to type something on my iPad. 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, you guys. So, as I was saying, white can go king d3, and now the problem is after king d4, white goes behind to collect all the pawns here. And after king g3, king b2 takes, king a3, king f3 takes, king e4 king a5, white draws by 1 tempo. Because on king d3, white has king to b6, winning the pawn on c6. And so this would be a draw on king and pawn endgame. So for that reason, you have to be very precise. And what I forgot about in the game is that after king c5, that c6 is not the only way that I can play this. I can also play a6 here. And so by playing a6, you figure, well, it's weird because now the pawns are like this. But there is one very deep nuance here. That is, after a6, white still can't go king c6 because of b4. If white goes king b4, black can just take. King a5, now I go king g4. White can't take. b4, same thing with c3. And here, if white plays a3, now I can play c5, boxing the king out. And after king a6, I go b4. And again, I'm going to make a queen on c1. And so for that reason, in this position, white can't run this way. White also can't run this way because of b4. So logically, white has to play a3 to stop b4. And then you want to go king c6 and take the pawn again. But now after a3, black can play c6. Or sorry, not... Wait a second. A6, A3. No, sorry, not C6. Sorry. Here I take the pawn. And in this position, if white goes king C6, I just go king G4. And white can't take because of A5, B4, C3. And I make a queen again. Just same old. King's too far down the board. And here, if white plays A4, which is also logical, now I play C6. And you'll notice there's a big difference in this position. So here, if white plays a5, I go king g4. And now if white takes or goes king b6, I go b4, c3. And so this is completely winning. Whereas you'll notice the difference in this line versus the other line is that after king c5, if c6, a3, I have to put the pawn on a5 first. So if white were to play a4, I just go a6. And this is the same endgame, and it's completely winning because white can't stop b4. When I get b4 to go c3, white can never bring the king in further. So for that reason, this is completely winning for black. But the problem is when I do it in this order after a3, I don't get to play a6. I have to put the pawn on a5 first, and then a4 locks it down, and this is a draw. So for that reason, after a6, if white has to play a3 or something, I take king c6, I just wait on g6. You can never take because of a5. And if you play a4 after c6, the pawn is on a6, not a5. And that's the difference in the line here, is that with the pawn on a6 as opposed to being on a5, white can never win this pawn on b5. And now white can never move the king in because b4 is unstoppable without this pawn being able to go to a3. So for this reason, this ending with this nice big fat clump of pawns here on the queen side against these two pawns is actually winning. And I suspect this might even be in Dvoretsky somewhere. I don't feel like I've seen this specific one, but with these 4 against 2, this is actually just winning for black. Someone says, go back and show me c6 instead of king g6. King g6, do you mean rook c5 or which one? Which position? Do you mean this position? Or do you mean this position where I played c6? I'm not sure which king g6 you're talking about. How long does it take me to calculate the endings? Not a whole lot of time, but the problem is that when I saw this line during the game, I not correctly, but I assumed that the only setup that made sense was with this pawn on c6 and trying to use these 3 pawns to go down the board. And so I forgot that after king c5, I could actually play a6. I only thought about this setup, but as we just looked at, this is completely fine for white. So for that reason, this ending would have been winning, and I should have actually played rook c5 because if white moves the rook c2 is coming, I'm going to win a bunch of pawns and probably the game. So for that reason, rook c4 was a blunder. But here, when I wasn't sure about that c6 line, the rook c5, the endgame, I mean, with all this stuff with takes and b5, c6, I thought Version has 2 minutes here. If I just play c6, then I'm still much better. I'm still much better here, and I'm going to win a pawn on g5. I'm still going to keep my pawns intact, the 4 connected here. And so for that reason, there's no need to go for this king and pawn ending where I'm not 100% sure that it's winning. So for that reason, I played c6 here. Bridgerweb says, when you say the king waits, is it g6, g7? Well, if we reach a king and pawn ending, there's no waiting with my king. I mean, I'm just going to go king g6, king g5, king g4, king g3, king g2, gobble the pawns and run the king to the queen side. There's no waiting here. I'm just going to gobble everything. So as I was saying, basically I decided here, trade rooks, white runs the king up to e5. Yeah, but it doesn't matter because the thing is, in this position after king g6, it doesn't matter. White's losing. Swole 19 says, boom, white lost. Yes, as Kasparov says in his good old master class, he says, boom, 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 white lost. Yes, white lost. And yes, white lost. White lost is ending. All right, okay, you guys. So as I was saying, basically in this position after king d5, c4, it looks like white's king is so close to the pawns, but white can never really attack this clump of pawns here in a way where he can ever win anything. And my king just has a straight path to g2. So this is completely winning. But it's very hard from afar. Like if you calculate c6, c6, a3, a5, a4, and you think it's a draw, it's very hard to go for a line like this because you're up 2 pawns here. And you're up 2 pawns, you've got beautiful pawns here. Why do you want to make this ugly little clump of double c pawns be an a pawn when you can just play c6 here? So for that reason, I felt it was more practical to play c6 since I didn't see a forced win. If I had seen that line with a6, I totally would have played rook c5, but I didn't see it, and VAR had 2 minutes, so no reason not to just be practical about it. So VAR played rook e4, I played king g6. Worth noting, rook takes g5 is not a good move here because now white can play rook e7 check, king f6, and after rook takes b7, rook takes g2, white just goes king d3, and now the b2 pawn is protected by the rook on b7, and he's hitting the pawn on a7. Lord Michelson says, am I ready to play against Lenier? I am not playing Lenier until round 10, so there's still 2 rounds before I play Lenier. I believe I play Sam Shanklin tomorrow, so there's still 2 rounds before I play Lenier. So after rook e4, no need to play rook g5, just keep it calm and simple with king g6. Here, VAR played rook e7, and now I play rook to b5, which is very, very nice here, because the rooks, again, supports everything. If I can put the pawn on d5, white can only attack the base of the chain at b7, but the rook will defend it while putting pressure on the b pawn here. So in this position, VAR played b3. Now I played king takes g5. VAR played rook d7. I played d5. And so this is the point. Now white can never attack the pawn on a7. White can also not attack the pawn on b7 because the rook supports the base, and the connect 3 of the pawn chain are really strong here. So in this position, it's very good for black. So here, VAR played king d3. Now I played king to f6, trying to bring my king closer, maybe king c5, king b6, so that I can then activate the rook, because right now the rook is tied to the b7 pawn. So here, VAR played king c3, trying to maybe play for a4, a5. Now here I played a5, very important move. If I just play a random move like king f5, then white can play a4, hitting the rook. I have to go rook b6 because I need to protect the pawn on b7 here. Now white goes a5. Rook b5, and now white can play a6, ruining the pawn structure. And if I take, white takes the pawn, and now my pawns are split. The rook's going to have a hard time defending everything. And so for that reason, this is quite good for well, not quite good, but white should be able to draw this endgame. Whereas in this position, what I need to do is I need to play a5, because now white can never remove the rook. So the rook protects the base of the pawn chain. The pawns obviously support each other. If white tries a4, then I go rook b4. Pawn solidifies the rook on b4, the rook protects the pawn, and now I can just bring the king all the way over, or even bring the king down the board to win the g2 pawn. And white will never be able to attack these pawns. So for example, if white tries rook d8, let's just say king f5, and white goes rook to a8 here, then now I can play b6. And now after rook c8, I go c5 and d4, and again, everything is protected very nicely. The rook is protected, the pawn chain has moved up 1 square up the board, b6, c5, d4 instead of b7, c6, d5, and there are no weaknesses at all because the rook protects the base of the pawn chain on b6 here. So Smash says, Hikaru sounds like he has been watching Shark Tank, and for that reason, I'm out. Not sure I get the reference, but anyway, I do like Shark Tank. It's a great show. I always like watching stuff that Mark Cuban is in. So after a5 here, Verusian played rook to c7, trying to prevent me from ever advancing the pawns. If I ever go b6, the c6 pawn hangs. He's always spying the pawn on b7 as well. So here I played king to e6. Now after king e6, Smash says, just because you keep saying, and for that reason. Okay, all right, fair enough. Hey, Jude78 says, Hikaru, what is your favorite breakfast cereal? I am a huge fan of Raisin Bran. I love my Raisin Bran. Raisin Bran. Great cereal. Huge fan. So here after king e6, Chess Bay, I said Raisin Bran. Raisin Bran is my favorite cereal. So after king e6, Verusian played a3 here. And here I played d4. a3 is actually the blunder in the game. So if you think about the position here, conceptually, I'm trying to bring the king over. I want to get the king to b6 where it will protect both these pawns, and then I can just activate the rook and win the game pretty routinely here. Moopy Pie Loopy says Lucky Charms for the win. Man, I've not had Loopy, or not Loopy, I've not had Lucky Charms for 20 years maybe. I haven't had Lucky Charms or Fruit Loops or any of that good stuff for a lifetime now. So in this position, Var played a3. Now Var's thinking, I presume, behind a3 was that he was worried I'd go rook b4 and activate my rook to win the pawn on g2. But the problem with a3 here is now I go d4, so I'm willing to gambit this pawn, but I'm keeping these three pawns intact here and trying to win this pawn on b3 and this pawn on a3. And Alleviation says, will you go on Joe Rogan if he invites you? Of course I would go on Joe Rogan's podcast. I watched that podcast with Elon Musk, a pretty famous one, recently. So yeah, I totally would go on with Joe Rogan. In fact, I actually did a podcast not so long ago with Malcolm Gladwell in New York City. So that'll probably be out in June. So I do plenty of podcasts, and I totally would do one with Joe Rogan. Absolutely. So back to the game. After a3, which is sort of the last blunder, we want to prevent rook b4, but after a3, I played d4 here. Chess Bay says, would you smoke a giant joint with Rogan? Go fool Elon. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to comment on that, Chess Bay, but I don't think I would do that. I need to preserve my brain cells. So here I play d4. I can't believe Chess Bay actually just asked it. That's very unusual. That's out of character for Chess Bay. So after d4 here, Verusian played king to c2. The problem here in this position for white by playing a3 and softening these pawns on b3 and a3 is that after king d4, rook b3, white has a big problem here, which is that basically I can put the pawns, I can create a connect 3 and create a very strong pawn chain here on a4, b5, and c6 while going king d6. So for that reason, a3 is a very bad move because it makes these pawns brittle on the queen's side. And when I'm able to exchange this one for this one, these three pawns are still very solid here. The rook protects the pawn, but I can also start to build a new pawn chain here going the other way from c6 to a4 as opposed to b7 to d5. So that's why after d4, Verusian played king c4, I played d3, he played king to c3, and now I played d2. Worth noting after d3, if white tries to play rook h7 to bring the rook behind the pawn, I just go d2, rook to h1, and now I play rook to g5, and I'm going to pick this pawn up on g2, and I'm just going to be up two pawns here in an endgame. Though I see, since you guys are talking about that, I believe a good friend of mine was actually at the state capitol in Albany today, doing something with marijuana legislation in New York. So there's a lot of stuff going on with all that, with all the 420 marijuana, CBD, all that good stuff. But a friend of mine was at the state capitol in Albany today, involved with some of the legislation that's being proposed. But yeah, so back to the game. Before we get off on this very, very weird tangent completely, thanks to Chess Bay. After king c3, I played d2. Verusian took. I played rook takes b3, and the game did go on here. But basically, the problem here for white is that if white tries to play like king c2 and remove my rook, say I go rook g3, then this pawn hangs. Now I go a4, and there's a big lock on the queen side now because the pawn supports the rook. And after g4, king d6, rook f7, I just go b5, and I create this new pawn chain going the other way, and this pawn on a3 can't be saved here, and white's just going to be down two pawns, and everything's going right down the board and winning. So for that reason, Verusian, I believe, played g4 here. For some reason, I don't actually have the rest of the moves, but Verusian played g4. I believe that I played a4, creating a lock with the rook here on b3. Verusian played g5. I played king to d6. Verusian played rook f7, and now I played b5, creating the connect 3 pawn chain here on the queen side. I'm going to win the pawn on a3 here. Verusian played g6. rook takes a3, g7, and here I played rook to g3. And here Varuzhin resigned because Connect 3 wins the day. I know it's not Connect 4. I'm not Rondo or something. I'm not some Connect 4 god. But anyway, in this position, it's just completely winning because the rook is behind the pawn, so white can never push the pawn or the rook forward. The rook is always tied to the g7 pawn from the side, and I can essentially just run all three of these bad boys to c1, b1, and a1, and it's completely winning for white here. Or for black here, sorry, not for white. So for that reason, in this position, Varuzhin resigned. How much time did he have left? Varuzhin had at move 40, he had 30 minutes because he ran out of time for the first control. And I think on king c3, he thought for about 25 minutes before playing king c3. So pretty much by this point, he had maybe 5-6 minutes in sudden death, and this is why he resigned here. So with this very nice victory with black, this puts me on +3. So right now, I believe I have 5 points out of 7, I believe. So I'm on +3, currently leading by half a point over Fabiano, who won this crazy rook and bishop endgame against Timur Gurev today. Also, Lenny Dominguez won a very nice game against Alex Lenderman to move to +2 on 4.5 out of 5. And I believe Sam Shanklin won against Ray Rob, or wait, no, sorry, no, Sam Sevian. Sorry, Sam Sevian won against Ray Robson to move to +2, and he's also on 4.5 out of 7. So right now, I meant Sevian. Sorry, there are too many Sams playing this tournament. So currently, I'm half point ahead of Dominguez, Caruana, and Sevian. So still 4 more rounds to go, but so far so good. Definitely can't complain at this point in the tournament. And tomorrow I will have the white pieces against last year's winner, Sam Shanklin. So 4 more games to go, half point lead. Would have been nice, perhaps, if Fabiano hadn't won today, but other than that, nothing really to complain about. Dark says, did VAR continue? Someone says, did VAR continue to the end to seem to scroll? No, I think around the time of Queen H4, Varuzhin started. He started thinking a lot, and then by the end, he just looked very, very sad. And I feel bad for VAR. He's a good guy, and it's obviously very hard to lose 3 games in a row. In an event like this, especially since it felt like the first one against Sevian was very self-inflicted. Thank you, Anispo Terex, for subscribing to the Tier 1 sub. So, I mean, I feel bad for VAR, certainly. It's a very, very tough result for him. But you know, these things happen. And I think more than just feeling bad for him, it's tough because VAR, I feel like one of these times he probably should have won a U.S. championship somewhere. He came very close in the early 2000s. I think in Seattle in 2004 or 2003, he lost in the last round to Shabalov. I think if he had drawn or won that game, he might have won the event. Thank you, Elevation, for donating 300 bits. So he probably should have won one early. I think like 3 years ago. Well, there was 2 years ago when I beat him in the last round, I believe, which ruined his chances. But also he should have won it, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. There was one time when I think he tied with Gata and lost in a tiebreak, but he was completely smoking Gata in a Dutch. I think that was maybe 4 years ago now. So I felt bad for VAR. It feels like he probably should have gotten a U.S. championship somewhere along the way, but it's pretty rough. I'm talking about Varuzhin Akobian, my opponent from today, Jason Sunshine. So yeah, I feel bad for VAR because it feels like he's obviously not going to win a U.S. championship now, but it feels like he probably should have gotten one somewhere along the way. So it's tough, and I feel bad for him. So, all right, you guys. So that was that game. So let's see if there's anybody who wants to play some Blitz now. Let's see if we finish up with a couple of games. Best U.S. player to never win a championship. I don't know my U.S. chess history that well, but I don't know. I feel like all the players who should have won definitely won a U.S. championship. So let's see if anybody wants to play. Let's see if Bortnick wants to play, maybe, or Penguin wants to play. Cupcake says, "How do you make those lovely curls in my hair?" That's just me not having a haircut for way too many months. Duke LinkedIn says, Hikaru Nakamura, maybe. I've won 4 U.S. championships, so I have won a couple of times. But I am trying to think. So if I go back, Joel Benjamin, if I go back to some of the older guys, Benjamin won, Christensen won, DeFermian won, Fedorowicz maybe? I don't know if he ever won one. Just trying to think back. Maybe did Igor Ivanov ever win the U.S. Championship? Maybe Igor Ivanov never won. I don't know. Maybe Igor Ivanov. I don't know if he ever won. Maybe not. But I want to say maybe Igor Ivanov if I had to pick somebody. Because it's hard to think of people who were GMs who didn't ever win. Maybe Tal Shaquette. I don't know if he ever won a U.S. Championship. But yeah, I don't know. So who's the opponent tomorrow? The opponent tomorrow will be Sam Shankland. So he was the winner last year. He's having a rough event this year. I mean, a couple really unfortunate game against Jeffrey. Got a great position out of the opening, and then all sorts of crazy tactics started happening. He lost that game. Really unlucky today.